Greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, King Clifford Jefferson, ascendant of Godfrey the fifth Count of Anjou, the son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. I'm the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know here at the Third Temple English Church of England as Jesus Christ, or the Vicar of Christ, or Malachi Zodok, which means the King of Righteousness. It is December 23rd, 2024, which is equivalent to the birth year 2974. All right. I greet you in the name of my Queen, Sister Galveston from the House of Galveston. I greet you in the name of the Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. I greet you in the name of all officers who are acting on behalf of the past officers, which are the ancestors, which are the predecessors, who have prepared the way for us here in the present day. I want to send a special prayer to my brother. Everybody keep him in prayer. He's having surgery right now. So keep him in prayer. Make sure that the ancestors are with him. But nonetheless, we must continue on with the fight. This lesson today is called Stealing of the King's Crown, the Tudors, the Stuarts, the Colonists, and now the States. No more. The Stealing of the King's Crown. This was done by the House of Tudors through what we call the right of conquest. It was done through what we call the House of Stuarts by what we call the Act of Settlement. It was done by what we call the colonists by prescription, and what it was done now by what we call the states by what we call supersession or superseding. Okay? Any one of you don't know those terms, please refer to my past lecture so you can get a better understanding of what it is that we do here at the Third Temple English Church of England. Greetings, Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. Greetings, Countess Middleton from the House of Middleton. Glad you were able to assist me here today as moderators, but not just as moderators, but as students, not just as students, but as members, not just members, but as citizens, not just citizens, but as nationals, not just nationals, but as heirs, not just as heirs, but as angels. Okay, I greet you here with the most honorable respect that one can be received from an ancestor or a predecessor that have prepared the way. Okay. Once again, this lecture is called Stealing of the King's Crown. Tudors did it, the Stuarts did it, the colonists did it, and now the states are doing it. It will not be tolerated anymore. Okay? It will not be tolerated anymore. Okay, so I expect you all to follow along with the lecture. We're going to start, as always, by the supreme law of the land, and we know the supreme law of the land governs the government that governs that land under the supreme law of the land, which is what we call the common law of England, under the government of England, whether it's king in parliament, or just parliament, or being represented by those who are put in place until that king came to reign, which will be me. So with that, let's get started with this marvelous lecture I prepared for you today. Nothing new under the sun. But once again, we like to continue to reiterate, okay, what it is that we do here. All right, so let's get started. Once again, like, share, subscribe. Those who are able to donate gifts, free and common soakage, whatever it is that you have within your heart, please send them to the Third Temple English Church of England on the source provided on the actual platform, or send it to $ Clifford Jefferson L. Your patronage is very well respected and received. Okay, I just left the courthouse today to file an amendment of the correspondence to the court for right of accession, as well as proof of service on the actual complaint filed upon the state of New Jersey, as well as New Jersey Land Title Institute. And come to find out that New Jersey Land Title Institute, which is located in Freehold, New Jersey, Willowbrook Road, is just a regency or an office where the original headquarters is in Ohio. All right, is in the state of Ohio. So they're really in trouble because the the mother company of New Jersey Land Institute is in Ohio, which is another state of its own, which is not a which is not a one of the original colonies. Okay, it's one of the original territories, but it's not one of the original colonies. Okay, and we know the territories and the colonies were under the same law. Which what law is that? The common law of England, where Archbishop resides in the state of Ohio. So give honor to the state of Ohio. Okay, let's give honor to all that it is that we have been given the ability to be able to see. All right, let's see. Kingdom of England. Archbishop said it became under the province of Quebec. You know, when we do the knowledge of Canada, when all that came about through the what we call the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution, uh, well as the other scrimmages that resulted within that. But yes, as Archbishop said, it became under the province of Quebec. All right. So just a refresher history on the Kingdom of England. All right. And we know that the Kingdom of England government was functioning under the common law of England, under the government in which we call Britain, which according to 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica was that which was ruled by Berbers. Everybody hold that thought. I'm gonna give a shout out to the English Third to the English Church of England, for there's nothing out there on the internet, YouTube, um, or any other platform that can uh, bring any bring the informative information that we have done thus far. There's nothing out there. Okay, so I just want to give a special honor for the hard work for those who have contributed. All right, and it's just a blessing to be a part of this illustrious movement, but that has been prepared by me and my prior self as King Edgar Jefferson. Okay, it's just beautiful, and to all oath, to all honor, to all prayer is received. Okay, so once again, it's just beautiful. Let's see. Kingdom of England. The Kingdom of England was a sovereign state on the island of Great Britain from the early 10th century when it was unified from various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms until May 1st, 1707, when it united with Scotland to form the Kingdom of Great Britain. Okay? So the Kingdom of England was a bunch of sovereign territories until it was unified by the Treaty of Union, by the Act of Union in 1707, when it united Scotland with England, okay, which would later become known as what we call the United Kingdom, which functioned under different parliaments, okay? I know that. They function under different parliaments. So let me share my screen, all right, just to show you. The Kingdom of England was a sovereign state on the island of Great Britain from the early 10th centuries when it was unified from various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms until May 1st, 1707, when it united with Scotland to form the King of Great Britain, when would later become known as the United Kingdom. I got to confess, I just got caught in a lie by Archbishop. I'm talking about I know that. If I know that, why wasn't it showing? So I stand corrected. All right. Even the king get caught out there. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta be careful what we do up here. You know what I'm saying? Because we get caught out there by our own members. He caught me out there. And I done lied to the people, saying I knew that. All right. Just a little joke for you, brothers and sisters. So once again, the Kingdom of England was a sovereign state on the island of Great Britain from the early 10th century when it was unified from the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms until 1st of May 1707 when it united Scotland with the Kingdom of Great Britain, which later became known as the United Kingdom. The Kingdom of England was among the most powerful states in Europe during the medieval and early modern periods. So we're talking about states, we're not talking about colonies, we're talking about states at the time of the Kingdom of England prior to 1707. Because we know that the Kingdom of England was known as the king under the government of what we call Witten or Wittenmark. Then it was replaced by what we call the Career Regents in 1066. Then we know it became under what we call the Kingdom of England. Okay? Once it became known as the Kingdom of England, it became known as the Parliament of Great Britain. Once it became the Parliament of Great Britain, then it became what we know as the King's Bench. From the King's Bench to what we call New Jersey Provincial Council. All right? We must understand that. So this began going all the way back to our ancestors, Alfred the Great, okay, which means wise elf. The most important thing we want to focus on in lieu of the history that we should already know based upon how long we've been reviewing our ancestral history, we want to take a look at the map, okay? We want to take a look at the map. History of the Kingdom of England from the Norman Conquest from 1066, conventionally distinguished periods named after successive ruling dynasties, i.e. the Norman Angevins. We know William the Conqueror came in 1066, which was a Norman Frankish king, all right, which there were already kings ruling what they call Normandy, which was the Angevin kings, which was a cadet branch of the Plantagenet crown, who gave birth to what we call the cadet branches of what we call the Yorks and the Lancasters, okay? So the Norman Angevin crown, all right, was the Angevin kings, which gave birth to what we call the Plantagenet crown, which was started by Godfrey the Fifth Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem. Then it was conquered by what we call the House of Tudors under Henry VII as a result of a conflict that originated internally with the family of the House of Yorks and the House of Lancasters. Okay? Very important. All right? And then from the Tudors, you got the Stuarts, which originated by way of what we call the Treaties of Perpetual Peace, which we're going to talk about today, which resulted in what we call the Acts of Union of 1707, which instituted what we call an interregnum because of the conflict of the obligations of the king. Okay? We started what we call the English Civil War. We're going to talk about all that today. Okay? All of these monarchs after 1066 ultimately descend from the Normans. All right? And the distinction of the Plantagenet is conventional, beginning with Henry II, son of Godfrey the Fifth Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem. As from that time, the Angevin kings became more English in nature. Okay? So what was their nature prior to them becoming English in nature? Because we know that prior to William the Conqueror invading England in 1066, the only people that were existing in that territory, i.e., as well as the English overseas possessions, were Berbers, as established by the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay? So through Henry II, son of Godfrey the Fifth Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem, it says that from that time, Angevin kings became more English in nature. The House of Lancaster and York are both Plantagenet cadet branches. The Tudor dynasty claims descent from Edward III via John Beaufort, John Gaunt, that is, and King James VI of Scotland, and soon to be called the first King of England, as a result of the what we call the Treaty of Perpetual Peace and the what we call the Act of 1603, which was the Union of the Crowns. All right, and that unified the House of Tudors and the House of Stuarts, who claimed the descent from Henry VII, the Margaret of Tudor. Okay, you must understand your history. So if you look at the two maps, the location of England from 1558 to 1707, as you see displayed in the green, is from the time of Elizabeth VIII. And at that time, Elizabeth VIII, the daughter of Henry VIII, the territorial location of the intended court of the king is now located in what they call Great Britain. Okay, or Britain or Great Britain. Prior to that, that was considered an English overseas possessions because the English government or intended court, according to the what we call the English overseas possession starts from 9/11. Okay, I mean, pardon. So from 9/27 going all the way back to Alfred the Great. So the location from the Kingdom of England in 1558 to 1707 is over where it's located now. Prior to that, it was located here on the what we call the eastern seaboard of what we call North America, and it stretched all the way to the west. All right, before pre-Columbian era. Okay, we talked about that prior in prior lessons. We're going to go through it again today. Okay, all right. As you can see, the English overseas possessions when the location of the government was over here, also included the location of the Kingdom of England when it was located over there, when it was ruled by Henry VII, Henry VIII, and Elizabeth I, who allowed the Stuarts to now convey the property under the House of Stuarts because they were never considered to be what we call kings and queens of England. Okay? We must comprehend. Let's look at the government. Elective monarch. All right, until 1066, feudal hereditary monarchs, parliamentary semi-constitutional monarchs. Okay, this is the history concerning what we call parliament, which we're going to talk about in a second. The monarchs goes back to Asserton from 927, which is the great grandson of Alfred the Great, and it ends with who? Queen Anne, a Scottish king. Okay, so it starts with Asserton, which means noble stone. Alfred the Great means wise elf. Queen Anne was the Scottish queen, all right, who established the crown, i.e., the intended court, in what we call the province of New Jersey, under what we call the King's Council or His Majesty's Council, called New Jersey Provincial Council. Okay, we must understand the language. Let's read the next paragraph. The completion of the conquest of Wales by Edward I, son of Henry III, in 1284, put Wales under the control of the English crown. Edward III transformed the Kingdom of England into one of the most formidable military powers in Europe. His reign also saw vital development in legislation and government. In particular, the evolution of the English Parliament. You hear that? So under Edward I, the evolution or the reformation or the modernization of the English Parliament started with Edward I, son of Henry III, the son of John, son of Henry II, son of Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou. Okay? From the 1340s on, the English came to the French throne under what we call the Plantagenet kings, and the Angevin kings were held in pretense. But after the Hundred-Year War, an outbreak of the War of the Roses in 1455, the English was no longer in any position to pursue their French claims and lost all their land on the continent. We're talking about Spain or the Iberian Peninsula, except for Calasius, After the turmoil of the War of the Roses, the Tudor dynasty, ruling during the English Renaissance, again extended English monarchical power beyond England, proper achieving the full union of England and the Principalities of Wales under the Laws of Wales Act. Under the Laws of Wales Act of 1535 to 1542. Henry VIII oversaw the English reformation of the English Church of England, and his daughter Elizabeth I. When I say the English Church of England, I'm also talking about the Church of England because the English Church of England was constantly being infiltrated, i.e., being um, usurped. Okay, so there's only one church. Okay, but as a result of usurpation, it was usurpated by the Roman Catholic Church, which we get into conflicts that was going back to the Gregorian mission with Pope Gregory I, and that extended all the way down to what we call the English Reformation when Henry VIII. Okay, as we just mentioned. All right. The Elizabethan religious settlement, meanwhile, established England as a great power and laying the foundation of the British Empire via colonization of America. Okay? Colonization of America. The ascension of James VI and First in 1603 resulted in the union of the crowns with the Stuart dynasty ruling the Kingdom of England, Scotland, and Ireland. Under the Stuart, England plunged into civil war. This limited the power of the monarchy under what we call an interregnum. Okay? An interregnum. There was something I wanted to pull up as well. Let me make sure. Yeah, I got it. All right. Charles I in 1649. The monarchy returned in 1660, but the Civil War had established the precedent that the English monarch could not govern without the consent of Parliament, i.e., limited the powers of the king. All right? This is when they stole the crown. What's the title of this lecture? Stealing the king's crown. The Tudors did it, the Stuarts did it, the colonists did it, and now the states. No more, my brothers and sisters. No more. Okay? The concept became legally established as part of the Glorious Revolution of 1688. From this time, the Kingdom of England, as well as its successor states, the United Kingdom, functioned in effect as a constitutional monarchy. Okay, this is all we need to read as what we call a premises. Okay, as a premises. Okay, let's go back to the box. History, just to get the compilation of the history. Adoption of the title King of the Anglo-Saxons by Alfred the Great, again to Alfred's Codes, Alfred's Doomsday Book, Alfred Dome's book, which was the what we call the incorporation of what we call the Mosaic Code, which is different from what we call the new covenant. All right, totally different. I'm gonna talk about that in another lesson. I don't have time to do it today. Then we have the unification of the Anglo-Saxons when the Danish start their Viking, do what we start to invade, do what we call the Battle of Hastings. That gets into what we call Knut the Great. What's his name? Knut the Great. Olaf. Now Knut the Great. What's his name? Harold Bluetooth. All right, these are the Danish people who, even though when they invaded, they actually blended and compiled and are also built upon the laws that were already established in government at that particular time. Then you got the Anglo-Norman invasions of Ireland. Then you get the Magna Carta, okay? Then you got the Model Parliament. Then you got the Incorporation of Wales. Then you got the Union of the Crowns. Then you got the Glorious Revolution. Then your Union of Scotland. This is all important events that you need to be able to develop a synopsis, all right? So that you can be able to develop a direct paper trail to prove our point. I have, so I'm going to bring it to you today. And when I make references, I'm talking about here in North America, not over there in what they call the United Kingdom right now. I'm talking about right here in North America. Okay, very, very, very important because the fact of the crown. Okay, wherever the crown, whatever territory the crown governs, belongs to the crown, and we all know what their crown is, right? Our crown is a corporation soul, which is represented by the monarch or a king. All right, synonymous. You got the history. We just went through a snippet of the history, okay? So you really have to study. So we're going to scroll down. Anglo-Saxon history. We know that up until the 14th century, even with the onslaught of invasions and things of that nature, we still held our internal functions of our government down. We held it down. Okay. We know Edward the Confessor was the last king of the Wessex till William the Conqueror invaded. Okay. Prior to that, there were Anglo-Saxon burghers, not English kings. Everybody after William the Conqueror became English kings. This is where we get into the High Middle Ages. Okay. Very, very important. On your own time, please examine this so that you can get a synopsis, all right, of what's going on. All right. I ain't got time to go into today. Do it today. While I'm scrolling down, any questions in the chat, please let me know. Do this time, we're going all the way back from Alfred the Great, and we're going to go all the way up to the 13th century that encompasses the English and French kings when they became unified. Okay? All right? Well after William the Conqueror invaded England. Through Margaret of Wessex, i.e., Margaret of Scotland, through the marriage of Malcolm III, her descendants uh, became married into the family of the Plantagenets and Kings. Okay? All right, we must understand that. We talked about that. I don't have time to go back to the lineage, but you need to be able to understand the lineage. Hold on. High Middle Ages. Keep scrolling down. War of the Roses, 100-Year War, War of the Roses. Now we get into what we call the House of Tudors. Okay? Because we already know that internally we are fighting amongst ourselves over the English throne as a result of marrying to what we call French and Spanish patronage. Okay, all right. We know that the French king and Spanish kings were aligned as a result of marriage. We know Edward the First was married to Eleanor of Castile. We know that Henry the Second was married to um, a French king, Eleanor Aquitaine. We know that their daughter, Eleanor of England, was also married to a Spanish king, what was his name? Ferdinand at the third or fourth, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so they were married in, and the family were married in together, so they must have been of the same stock. Okay, they had to be of the same stock, and they had kingdoms, territories over here in North America before it was moved over to what we call Europe in 1558 by what we call the Tudors descendants, Henry Elizabeth I. Okay, prior to that, the government was situated right here in North America, going all the way back to Alfred the Great. Okay, Tudor family. We need to focus on Henry VII because I said Henry VII conquered the Lancaster branch. Okay, conquered the Lancaster branch. We must not forget that. Okay, he conquered the Lancaster branch. Okay, internally, not externally, internally. Let's see. Right there. Right of conquest. Right? To secure his hold on the throne internally, Henry declared himself king by right of conquest. Okay? Prescription. All right? Eminent domain power. All right? This is adverse possession. Okay? Supersession. This is how Henry did it internally. Okay? Right of conquest is historically a right of ownership of land after immediate possession via force of arms. Okay? We must understand that. This is how our family was lost. Okay? As a result of mismanagement as well as neglect on our own. Okay? We have to correct this now. All right? Not just back then, but now, because the same government is functioning or operating based off the same mismanagement. Okay? Non features of office. Okay? Let's move down. All right, let's go back here. Kingdom of England. Back to the Kingdom of England. We know that Henry VII conquered the throne of England by right of conquest when there was a war of the roses between the Lancasters and the what we call the York branch and the Lancaster branch were cadet branches of the Angevin branch of the Plantagenet crown, which descended down from Godfrey the Fifth, Count of Anjou, son of Fulk, ruler of Jerusalem. Okay, so it's chaos in Jerusalem. All right, over here. All right, over here. Let's go down. Kingdom of England. So we got a snippet of what was going on. We want to go to the 13th, 14th century. Okay, let's see. Okay. In order to do that, we have to go to the Parliament of England. Okay. So let's go to the Parliament of England. We looked at the Kingdom of England. We see the Kingdom of England was located here prior to 1558. All right. And we know that the House of Tudors, by right of conquest, took over the King of the English throne by way of negligence on our behalf as a result of fighting who will be the next heir. Okay? We must understand that. All right. So with that, we're on the Parliament of England. Okay? We're on the Parliament of England. And we're talking about England over here. Not over there. It wasn't over there till 1558. Any questions? Everybody on point and comprehending? Please give me a thumbs up in the chat, those who are here today, if you are comprehending. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you are comprehending. The English Parliament. The English Parliament, which is the government for the Kingdom of England. The English Parliament was functioning from the government of England. Okay, very, very important, and it went by many different names. Okay, it went by many different names. Okay, let's examine those names. Okay, Parliament of England. We're going to scroll right through this real quick. All right, real quick. So pre-13th century, all right, pre-13th century, you get into history of Parliament from Alfred the Great, all right, all the way up to what we call the Angevin cadet branches, the Yorks and Lancasters, all right. Very important to understand that because this is the time Parliament of England is being created. Prior to that, it was called Career Regis. Prior to that, it was called Witton or Wittemont, okay. So at this time, we go into what we call the Parliament established by Henry III. Prior to that, it was called pre-13th century predecessors of the government. Prior to those who preceded them was the government of the Anglo-Saxons, who were a family to the Plantagenet and Angevin crowns, who were ruling what we call Normandy at this time. Okay, so predecessors pre-13th century. We move forward. These were the ancient ancestors of us under what we call Witton, okay? Or Wittemont, which the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica says they're what? They're Berbers, okay? Then you got the Norman Conquest of 1066. It was changed to Anglo-Saxon Berbers to English, okay? As a result of Norman invasion on that land that belongs to what? The Anglo-Saxon Berbers, okay? From there, you got the Constitution of Clarendon. We know that Constitution of Clarendon was created by the Plantagenet kings, okay? Henry III, Henry II. You hear that? Constitution of Clarendon was a set of legislative procedures passed by Henry II of England in 1164. This deals with certain of what we call assize courts, okay? This is what you call your trial courts, all right? Under the common law of England. This is where this comes from, all right? This is all our creation. I ain't got time to read it all, so I'm going to scroll down. 13th century, changes were being made for the benefit of the whole. Okay, the friend for the family, the Intel family. Once again, you're going to have to read it on your own for the sake of the time I have to do this lesson. But we're going from pre-13th century, post-13th century to pre-13th century, and after. Okay, we got Henry III, son of Henry II. Parts of son of John, son of Henry II, son of Godfrey, the fifth kind of brand Jew. All right. You can read about that on your own time. Greetings, Brother McGarrell from the House of McGarrell. Glad you were able to join us. All right. There's a lot of stuff going on in our government that we need to be familiar with, going all the way back from the kings of Wessex to the Anglo-Saxon Plantagenet kings, known as the Angevin kings, known as the Yorks and Lancasters, to find out where we went wrong. Okay, good. This starts with what we call the creation of a new parliament. Once the parliament that was instituted by William the Conqueror in 1066, which kept up the original laws of Parliament, going back to that which was established by the kings of Wessex under what we call Witten. Okay, Witten. Edward the First. All this is our family, my brothers and sisters. Plantagenet kings. These is all the statues: Westminsters, Gloucesters, Mortimer, Westminsters, Winchester, Queen Pretorius, Cornwall. All these statues instituted by the legislative enactment of Edward the First have reflect the territories now known as the states or colonies here in what we call or now known as New Jersey. Okay, so you must understand the history. All right, all that history started with the English Civil War. Okay, started with Charles the First, son of King James. This is why we're going through the history, so there can be no excuse. 14th century. So we went from the 13th to the 14th to the 15th century. Edward II, Edward III, these are all sons of Edward I. There's an internal conflict going on. All right. At this time, we get to what? To Tudor era. Okay. And we already know that Henry VII conquered England, the English throne, by what? Right of conquest. So he didn't inherit it, all right, by primogeniture. All right. So he took it by force. All right. So we can single him out. And every other one who got their authority from him, we can single out. Okay. Now you get into the revolt or rebellion. Okay. This is where we need to go. All right. This is where we need to be. Rebellion and revolution from the Kingdom of England. This starts with the what we call Union of the Crowns. Okay? It starts with the Union of the Crown involving King James, the Sixth of Scotland, and he was never considered the first king of England. Okay? Because at this time, there's an interregnum because of the limitations of the power of the king. Okay? We must understand that. Rebellion. Parliament has not always submitted to the wishes of the Tudor monarch, but parliamentary criticism of the monarchy reached new levels in the 17th century when the last Tudor monarch, Elizabeth I, died in 1603. King James VI of Scotland came to power as King James I, founding the Stuart monarchy. Okay? Tudors took it. Now the Stuarts are trying to follow behind. Okay? This is where the concept of petitioner right came in because as a result of what happened as a result of the Stuarts that was founded in the House of Tudors, the so-called colonists were upset with the Stuarts as a result of the power given to them by the Tudors because why? It wasn't properly inherited. And the colonies could not inherit something that they did not belong, which is the reason why there was an upset from the door. This is the reason why you had the petition of rights from the door. Okay? But they couldn't petition the English king because the only king ruling at this time was Scottish kings. You must understand. In 1628, alarmed by the arbitrary exercise of power, the House of Commons submitted to Charles I the Petition of Right, demanding the restoration of their liberties. Though he accepted the petition, Charles later dissolved Parliament and ruled without them for 11 years. It was only after the financial disaster of the Scottish Bishop Wars that he was forced to recall Parliament so that he can authorize new taxes. This resulted in the calling of the assemblies known historically as the short parliament and long parliament. We must understand this profound history, my brothers and sisters. Okay? We must understand this profound history. With that in mind, let's go back to the pre 13th century and read what it said there. Right here. This is how you teach, my brothers and sisters. This is how you teach. Over the centuries, the English Parliament progressively limited the power of the English monarchy, a process that arguably culminated in the English Civil War and the High Courts of Justice for the trial of Charles I. That's where we left off with, right? Based upon the rebellion and what was the evolution? What was it? The rebellion and what was it called? Rebellion and revolution. We know that that was established as a result of the limitations on the power of the English monarchy, limited the power of the English monarchy, which resulted in what we call the English Civil War. Okay? The English Civil War limited the power of the English monarchy. Prior to that, the English monarchy was ruling. Okay? Ruling, not under the House of Stuarts, but under our ancestors. Okay, it was just being usurped by Henry VII as a result of the conflict that was going on internally. If that makes sense to everyone, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. English Civil War. The English Civil War was a series of civil wars and political machination between royalists and parliamentarians in the Kingdom of England from 1642 to 1651. So they're specific about the date. Prior to that, there was no English Civil War. There were conflicts in the English Parliament. There was conflicts in regards to who would inherit the English throne. There were conflicts with the latter two as a result of the conflict that was going on with the family. It had nothing to do with the Scottish kings. It had nothing to do with Henry VII, which was a Roman Catholic in nature. Okay, we must comprehend the argument here. Okay. All right. So the English Civil War was between the royalists and parliamentarians in the Kingdom of England from 1642. Prior to that, that was not the matters that were happening at that particular time. Okay, so from the English Civil War resulting in what we call the War of the Three Kingdoms, the Glorious Revolution, the Bishop Wars. Okay, the Second English Civil War, the Anglo and Scottish War. Okay, all these came later, my brothers and sisters. All of this stuff came later. Okay, so we greetings, Brother McGarrett. Glad you were able to join us. Okay. So since we understand that, let's go back in history concerning uh the English crown, okay? The English crown. And go backwards, okay? Let's go backwards. New Jersey Provincial Council or His Majesty's Council, okay, was the upper house of the New Jersey legislature under the colonial rule until it was replaced. It was operating under what? Everyone said the English crown. The government was located in Perth Amboy and Burlington. All right? Perth Amboy and Burlington, okay, in 1707, 1702. It was always here in the territories here, Burlington and Perth Amboy. If it was in another territorial, it was still subject to what we call the crown. We know the crown of England goes back to 927, okay? 927, all right, way before 1702. And we know that the location of the government of England didn't relocate till 1558, okay? So when we're dealing with the government of New Jersey as a royal colony, it was under the authority of the crown, and the length of term of that crown was indefinite, meaning was forever. Indefinite means forever, okay? We must comprehend that to make the connection, okay? The instructions given to him by Viscount Cornbury, the first royal governor of New Jersey, outlined a fusion of power system which allowed for an overlap of the executive, legislative, and judicial authority, and provided for a bicameral legislature consisting of a council and general assembly. The last royal governor of New Jersey was Governor Franklin before he was replaced by William Livingston, then replaced by William Patterson. Okay, William Livingston was replaced William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin. And William Franklin warned them to not undertake what it is that they're doing based upon a cast of die, which means that events that are taken are undertaken from which there is no return. So William Franklin, the illegitimate son of Benjamin Franklin, warned the founding fathers. All right, that includes William Livingston and William Patterson, because William Patterson was appointed by who? George Washington, your president of the United States. Okay, all right. He appointed William Patterson as a judge in the Supreme Court of the United States, but yet this guy holds not just a judiciary position in the United States Supreme Court. He was a governor of New Jersey and an attorney general of New Jersey. Okay, we must understand the timeline. All right, we must understand the timeline. So if New Jersey was the crown, and it is indefinite, and it governs the government, okay, and everybody who are officers of that government, because the crown is a government, okay. So if that's the case, then we know the government was located in what? Burlington and Perth Amboy, but the territory that it governed was not just the territories over here, but overseas as well. Okay, yes, we're talking about United Kingdom. Prior to that, called Great Britain. Prior to that was called Britain. Prior to that was called Albion, which was one great vast empire of our ancestors. Okay, we must comprehend that. William Franklin, William Livingston, William Patterson, and William Patterson was the one who helped do what we call the 1787 Convention. Okay, New Jersey declared their independence in 1787, December 18. December 18, 1787, New Jersey declared their independence by ratification of the United States Constitution of 1787. Okay, and with that independence, they're claimed to be the sovereign because the word or the term governor actually means the sovereign. Okay, let's see. So if the crown represents the land, that means any land where the crown is governed would be considered what? A crown colony. So look up the word crown colony, my brothers and sisters. The Crown Colony or Royal Colony was a colony governed by England and then Great Britain or the United Kingdom within English and later British empires. There was usually a governor to represent the crown. Did y'all hear that? Appointed by the British monarchs on the advice of the United Kingdom with or without the assistance of the local council. I repeat, royal Crown Colony or Royal Colony was a colony governed by England and then Great Britain and then the United Kingdom within the English and later British Empire, i.e., the English Empire. And there was usually a governor, i.e., viceroy, i.e., minister, i.e., regent, to represent the crown, appointed by the British monarch on the advice of the United Kingdom's government, with or without the assistance of a local council. Did y'all hear what I just said, my brothers and sisters? So anywhere the crown went or ruled, it was ruling the territory, which at that time was called a colony. Okay, it was called a colony, and colonies were ruled by what? Governors, which are also synonymous with what we call regents. Let's look up the word regent. Regent. In a monarch, a regent from Latin regens means ruling or governing, is a person appointed to govern a state pro tempore for the time being. Because the actual monarch is a minor, absent, or incapacitated, or unable to discharge their powers and duties, or the throne is vacant, i.e., interregnum, and a new monarch has not yet been determined. The rule or the rule of the regent or regents is called a regency. Okay, we must understand that the purpose of a governor, i.e., a viceroy, i.e., a minister, i.e., a regent, is only for a temporary basis. Okay, a temporary basis. Okay, so that means any state in a municipality that has a governor, all right, is a temporary position. Okay, this state in particular we're talking about is the state of New Jersey. Okay? Because if it wasn't for the Jersey plan and the Virginia plan, you will have no United States. Okay? The Virginia plan was submitted by an individual, his name slips my mind, but the New Jersey plan was presented by who? William Patterson. Prior to William Patterson presenting uh, uh, that presentment to the Continental Congress, we understand that the authority governing this land was the crown, and we know that he preceded William Franklin, parts of William Livingston, and William Livingston was preceded by William Franklin. William Franklin was a royal governor. Every governor after William Franklin was de facto. Okay, they were in fact de facto. Okay, we're talking about New Jersey because New Jersey was ruled by New Jersey's provincial council, and the council was the government for the Kingdom of England. We must make that distinction. If everybody understand that, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. Okay, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. Now let's really do some investigation. Okay? If New Jersey was the crown in 1702 and the crown government was indefinite, okay? Everybody repeat that word. Indefinite. Everybody say it with me. Indefinite. Okay? The authority of the crown is indefinite. We know the crown is a natural person, so the power of that natural person, according to the length of term of him having that power, is what? Indefinite. Whether he's ruling in Burlington, whether they're ruling in Perth Amboy, or some other territorial, which is a temporary location as a result of some emergency. Okay? So the instructions from Queen Anne to Viscount Cornbury, the royal governor, i.e., based upon a royal colony, outlined a fusion of power of the executive, legislative, and judicial under the power of the crown. And the last royal governor that had that power was William Franklin. It was dissolved by William Livingston and William Franklin and William Patterson as a result of the New Jersey plan. Okay? The New Jersey plan. Let's talk about that now, because this resulted in what we call the 1787 Convention. All right? William Patterson. Everybody, please pay attention. Thank you, Countess Middleton. I try my best. William Patterson, the third governor succeeding Governor William Franklin, who got instruction from Viscount Cornbury, the royal governor appointed by Queen Anne, a Scottish queen under the Parliament of Great Britain. All right, but we understand that she was acting under the Parliament of England because the crown that was in place in 1702 was the Parliament of England. Okay, was the Parliament of England. William Patterson was an American statesman, lawyer, jurist, and signer of the United States Constitution. He was an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, not the Superior Court of New Jersey, not the Supreme Court of New Jersey, not the Appellate Court of New Jersey, not the District Court of New Jersey, not a regular court of New Jersey, but the United States Supreme Court. Okay? Then he was the second governor of New Jersey and a founder father of New Jersey, of the United States. You see how much of influence this guy was, who replaced William Livingston, who replaced William Franklin, who replaced William Franklin, the royal governor, by locking him up. Associate Justice he was appointed to by who? George Washington. William Franklin told George Washington not to do this. He told him, but they went on with it anyhow, right? Once they accomplished their goal as the governor of New Jersey, because as the governor, he was head of the executive branch. We know that under the administrative quasi legislation, there's quasi executive decisions that can be made and held to be under quasi judicial acts. Okay, which we talked about in my last lesson. Okay, so George Washington appointed William Patterson. Okay, as a United States Supreme Court judge. He was the governor of New Jersey, but prior to that, he was what? A senator. Okay? What happened to separation of power? Okay? Prior to that, he was what? An attorney general. He replaced William Livingston. The what? Attorney general. I mean, the governor. Okay? The governor. We must comprehend what's at stake. Why? Let's go to it. William Patterson, September 9th, 1806, born 1745, December 24th, was an American statesman, lawyer, jurist, and signer of the United States Declaration, the United States Constitution. He was Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court and a second governor of the United States, founding father of the United States. Okay? Born in County Antrim, Ireland, Patterson moved to North America, British colony at a young age. After graduating from College of New Jersey, now known as Princeton University, which is all a part of Delaware. We know Delaware is originated from Pennsylvania. Okay, yes, Delaware is a part of Pennsylvania, and those territories at one particular time were incorporated by what we call William Penn. But William Penn, when he incorporated, the crown was already here. The crown was already here. Why? Because Delaware and Pennsylvania didn't incorporate it till 1787. But the crown was here in 1702. New Jersey was the third state to ratify their constitution. Okay? Let's look at the proof. All right, so it says that he helped write the 1776 Constitution of New Jersey and served as the New Jersey Attorney General from 1776 to 1783. He represented New Jersey at the 1787 Philadelphia Convention, where he proposed the New Jersey Plan, which would have provided equal representation among the states in Congress. Did everyone see that? Right? Let's go to New Jersey now. We know New Jersey was incorporated in December 17th, 1787, but prior to that, it was under the crown. Hold that thought. Apologize. I was starving. Stomach was growling, trying to eat a piece of bread. New Jersey. New Jersey is the most densely populated United States state. The state is located in both mid-Atlantic and northeastern region of the United States, at the geographic hub of the heavily urbanized northeast megalopolis. Megalopolis. New Jersey is bordered to northwest, north, and northeast by the state of New York, and on the east, southwest, and south by the Atlantic Ocean. On the west by the Delaware River, and Pennsylvania is on the southwest by the Delaware Bay and Delaware. Okay. Uh, New Jersey, I'm not going to read the square miles. New Jersey is the fifth smallest state in land area, but with over 9.5 million residents as of 2024. The United States Census Bureau estimates its highest population ever. The state ranks 11th in population. The state capital is Trenton, and the state most populated city is Newark. New Jersey is the only United States in which every county is deemed urban by the United States Census Bureau. Okay? It was incorporated, what, December 18th, 1787. Okay? 1787. Everybody see this. Admitted into the Union, 1787. December 18th. Prior to that, 1702, that territory, now called New Jersey, before it was admitted into the Union, before it became incorporated, was under the authority and power of, everyone said, the crown. Okay? Under what type of governor? A royal governor. Okay? Not the governors you see here, because we know that according to them, they're synonymous with the regions, which were only temporary, all right, as established in Article 23 of the Constitution for your provisionary government. Okay? You didn't want to stop. You didn't want to quit. So you're going to be forced to quit. All right? You are going to be forced to quit. How we know it? Let's go to the proof. You admitted to the Union in 1787, December 18th. We already know that when we go to the list of states incorporated in New Jersey, we see that New Jersey was the third state to incorporate. Let's look at it. Delaware was the first, Pennsylvania was the second, and New Jersey was the third. Okay? All right, let's go down. List of United States by date of admission into the Union. First state, everybody said Delaware, December 7th, 1787. Was it a royal colony? No, it was not a royal colony. The second state to incorporate, December 12th, 1787, was Pennsylvania. Was it a royal colony? No. Was it a colony? No. It was a proprietary province of Pennsylvania, which was under the authority based upon the process that William Penn established based upon the charter he received from who? Charles II, the son of who? Charles I, and all that shit started as a result of what we call the English Civil War. Okay? The English Civil War, which limited the power of the English king, which caused an interregnum because there was no English heir as a result of them being replaced as established by the United Kingdom government by way of what we call governors. Okay? We must understand. So the Delaware was a colony of Delaware. Pennsylvania was a proprietary province of Pennsylvania, and New Jersey was what? A crown colony of New Jersey. Okay? A crown colony of New Jersey. That's in 1787. You didn't get any other crown colony until 1788 and on up. From 1787, you only got 3 states in questions in regards to their being admitted to the Union. December and all in December. Okay, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. And we know New Jersey was already a crown colony because it was under the crown. And what year everyone said? 1707. 1702. Okay? The crown was already in place in 1702. So anything that was in after that becomes what? Null and void. Why? Because those governors that were put in place under a crown colony, all right, there were regions that were there temporary until that king come of age. What king we talking about? We're talking about me. Okay? We're talking about me. So we see the first state to become independent and admitted to the Union was who? Delaware. Let's look at it. Delaware. The Delaware County, officially known as the 3 lower counties on Delaware, was a semi-autonomous region of the proprietary province of Pennsylvania and a de facto British colony in North America. Although not royally sanctioned, Delaware consists of the 3 counties on the west bank of Delaware River Bay. You hear that, my brothers and sisters? De facto. In the early 17th century, the area was inhabited by the assumption of people identified what they call the Lenape, but that is a fraud. They were not the indigenous people of that land. The original people of that land were the English misnomer, or originally called Anglo-Saxon Berbers. The first European settlement was the Swedes, who established the colony of New Sweden and forced Christian in present-day Wilmington, Delaware. In 1638, Dutch captured the colony in 1655, annexed it to a New Netherland to the north. England subsequently took control of it from the Dutch in 1664. In 1682, William Penn, the Quaker proprietor of the province of Pennsylvania, to the north leased the 3 lower counties of Delaware River from James, Duke of York, and went on to become what? King James II. So Delaware was part of the de facto province of Pennsylvania. Okay, let's go to the province of Pennsylvania before I come to my closing. Province of Pennsylvania, also known as Pennsylvania Colony, was a British North American colony founded by William Penn, who received the land through a grant from Charles II of England in 1681. The name Pennsylvania was derived from Penn's Wood, referred to William Penn, Father Admiral Sir William Penn. So that means that Charles II gave a charter to William Penn, which was actually revoked from the crown. Okay, who was Charles II? Let's look at him, who inherited at the climax of the English Civil War, which was started by Charles II, who limited the power of the English monarch. Why? Because he was not, in fact, an English monarch. Y'all must understand. He was a de facto monarch, not de jure. Charles II was the King of Scotland from 1649 until 1651, and King of presumptive King of England and Scotland and Ireland from the 1660 restoration of the monarchy until his death in 1685. He was no King of England because you didn't have the unification of England until what time? 1707. Okay? So how the hell is you the King of England? Please, somebody explain that. Charles II was the eldest surviving child of Charles I of England, Scotland, Ireland, and Henrietta Marie of France. After Charles I's execution at Whitehall on 30th of January 1649, at the climax of what? The English Civil War, the Parliament of Scotland proclaimed Charles II king on 5th of February 1649. However, England entered the period known as a what? A English interregnum, which means that there were no English kings. So how the hell are you calling yourself king when there was no king? Okay? There was a governor, i.e., regent, i.e., viceroy, i.e., minister, but there was no king. All right? We must understand the science here, my brothers and sisters. All right. So we see that province of Pennsylvania, which encompasses so-called Delaware, both of those territories were originated from a charter from the de facto kings Charles II, Charles I, as well as King James the Sixth of Scotland, who was the father of Charles I. Because none of this stuff would have started if it wasn't for that marriage with the plan with the marriage between King James and Margaret of Tudor. Okay, there would not be a house of Stuart, my brothers and sisters. There would not be a house of Stuart. We know that province of Pennsylvania, which was acquired by Charles William Penn, was acquired through a practice that was instituted by our ancient forefathers through what we call lottery of season. Okay, lottery of season. They didn't get theirs through lottery of season. They got there through what they call the Treaty of Perpetual Peace. So let's look at that before we close out. Treaty of Perpetual Peace. The Treaty of Perpetual Peace was signed by King James VI of Scotland and Henry VII of England. So at this time, Henry VII was the King of England, which got the title as King of England by what we call right of conquest. He was a heir of the Plantagenet descendants of the cadet branches of the York of the Lancasters, based upon primogeniture, which is rooted in agnatic succession, which is rooted in Celtic law. Okay, we must understand because that followed descendants of Henry II's father, Godfrey the Fifth Caravan Jew, and the only one to fit that in that equation is me, because my last name is Godfrey. Okay, Godfrey Jefferson, son of Godfrey, son is prefix. Okay, so the Treaty of Perpetual Peace actually resulted into what they call the Union of the Crowns in 1603. Okay, from which sprung forth the Acts of Union of 1707. Now, this, of course, was a de facto alliance because the terms were broken by way of an original alliance that was established by an older alliance going back to the old alliance. Okay, this is why that treaty was broken with Henry VII at that time, because there were an old alliance that Scottish had against England, which resulted from their expulsion from England in 1290 by what king everyone said? Edward I. Okay, the treaty was broken in 1513 when James declared war on England in support. You hear that? The treaty was broken in 1513 when James declared war on England in support of the French, who had lately been attacked by the English. James was acting according to Scottish obligation, not to Henry VII, not to Henry VIII, not to Elizabeth I, not to any other monarch that descended after that, but to who? The damn old alliance that they had. Okay? The old alliance, a mutual defense treaty called the Oath of Alliance. Despite this abrogation, the Treaty of Perpetual Peace had a long-lasting effect because the marriage between James Stuart and Margaret of Tudor, this great-grandson of King James VI of Scotland, was able to succeed the English throne in 1603 by the union of their crowns. What is the Old Alliance? Let's go to it in closing. Old Alliance was an alliance between the kingdoms of Scotland, France against England. So how in the hell did King James, how in the hell did Charles I, how in the hell did Charles II and Queen Anne have the title as Queen or King of England when it just said that there was an English interregnum? Okay? There was the English interregnum. Why? Because of the conflict going all the way back to the old alliance, which actually resulted from what? Edward the First expulsion of the Scottish king from England. How I know it? Let's look at it. Birth of the old alliance. The dynastic turmoil caused by the death in 1290 of Scotland's 7-year-old Queen Margaret, the Maid of Norway, now Margaret of Scotland, left the covetous Edward I of England with the opportunity to assert his authority over Scotland. In response to the Council of 12, which had taken over the government of Scotland temporarily, sought alliances wherever they could be found. Philip IV declared England's possession of Gascony forfeited in 1294, bringing France and England closer to war. Alliance with France was a clear course for Scotland to take. So as we can see, we see all the alliances that were made against the Kingdom of England with accomplished alliances with other nations that were warring with what? Who? The Kingdom of England. The opposite alliances with the Frankish king, I, the Carolingian king, which Muhammad descended down from, already on the damn Arabian Peninsula. Okay? They invaded the Iberian Peninsula, now known as Spain. They also invaded North America as a result of their identity due to immigration here as so-called citizens. All right. This goes back to what we call the Franco and Scottish alliance when they were expelled from England. Okay. Let's see if we can close out on that. Scottish independence. In closing. Here. History. Kingdom of Scotland. Scotland emerged as an independent polity during the early Middle Ages, where some historians dated its foundation to the reign of Kenneth MacAlpine, a northern Frankish king. All right, the level of the independence of Scotland kingdom was fought over by the Scottish kings and by the Normans and Angevin rulers of England, who petitioned the Pope and other foreign rulers. A watershed in Scottish kingdom history was a succession crisis that erupted in 1290 when Edward I of England claimed the right of appointment to the Scottish throne. The old alliance of Scotland and France against English interests was first invoked at the time, remaining active through the 16th century, the War of Scottish Independence, ended in the renewal of the kingdom under Robert the Bruce, whose grandson Robert II, II of Scotland, was the first Scottish king of the House of Stuart. Going back to the Scottish independence, which we'll read this in closing. And that's it. Okay. All right. So in closing, we have to understand that when we're dealing with the Kingdom of England, okay, and the Parliament of England, and we know that the Kingdom of England under the Parliament of England under the King, and we that the King was in charge of all three aspects of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. Okay, the King was in charge of that. We see that from 927, i.e., pre pre-parliamentary, going back to the time of Witten, we see that it remained intact on the onslaught of what we call invasions of what we call Frankish, Danish, Islamic Vikings who invaded our territory and upheld our law as a result of prerequisite. Okay, it didn't start until when we get to the 14th and 15th century when there was an internal conflict as a result of the cadet branches of the Angevin and the branches of the York and Lancaster branches, which were warring over who would inherit the English throne, which led to what we call the 100-Year War, the War of the Roses, the Second 100-Year War, which started with the transfer and conveyance of the intel estate that was under the authority passed by Queen Tudors by Edward I to make sure that the land could not be subjugated, was conveyed to Henry VII by what we call right of conquest, which was a form of prescription. That intel allowed the House of Stuarts and allowed their immigrants to come over to now inherit the estate by way of what we call prescription, by way of what we call adverse possession, okay, i.e. squatting rights, all right, knowing damn well that all the land was held in what we call inquisition post-mortem, which means for the until that heir, i.e. that king, by way of primogeniture, was to arise and take that position as the crown and be able to revert the crown by way of remandum or reversionment based upon the interest of land that was made by lottery of season, not by way of deed, because William, what's the name? Uh, William Penn uh, uh, received the territory now known as Delaware and Pennsylvania by way of so-called charter, which we now known as what we call a deed, okay, which is instrument of how they acquired the possession. Is that an instrument of proof of that the acquirement was actually lawful, okay? And with that, we're going to go to lottery of season and close out on that. Lottery of season. Lottery of season is an archaic conveyance ceremony formerly practiced in feudal England and other countries following English common law, used to convey holdings and property. The term lottery is closely related to the synonymous word or term delivery, used in some jurisdictions in contract law or related to law of deeds. You hear that? The oldest form of common law provides a valid conveyance, i.e., transfer of a feudal tenure, i.e., land held under feudal laws, requires physical transfer by the transferor to the transferee in the presence of, i.e., a witness of a piece of the ground itself by way of what we call symbolism or what we call um, representation in a literal sense of a hand-to-hand passing of an amount of soil, twig, key to a building or on that land or other token. If you watch the movie Lord of the Rings, you'll see that Oakenshield receiving inheritance by way of what we call lottery of season by way of a key to the mountain. Okay, so you must understand that this is the same way the conveyance is being received for us, but it's not based upon some key, i.e., some symbol. It's based upon the other form of conveyance on the lottery of season, which is called lottery of law, based upon operation of law, which was promised by our ancestors once we woke the hell up. Okay. So it said lottery indeed, which is one process of conveyance of land, is whereby the parties meet together on the land and the transfer is symbolically delivered by way of possession of the land by handing over a twig or a clump of earth to the recipient, okay? Versus lottery of law, whereby the parties went within sight of the land and the transferor declared that the recipient that possessions was being given to, followed by the recipient entering onto that land. So our ancestors told us, look, this is your land. The only thing you have to do is go into that land and receive it by the proper form of it, not by going down there and filing the deed, but by the law which determines how the land will be conveyed, which is through the process of reversion or remanding because of the right of intel land to not be subjugated by way of what we call common recovery. We must understand that. The symbol of lottery for the house was a door ring or hats for mills, the clap and hopper for a church, a psalms book, and a key, and so on and so on and so on. So whatever form of conveyance that you use to sell that transaction resulted in many forms. We're going to go back to the original form that our ancestors used, which was by way of lottery of law, okay? Based upon not just statutory law, but common law. That's just not just by common law, but let's say an enactment passed by these kings. Okay, prior to the Act of Union and the Treaty of Union of 1603 and 1707, because the Twig and Twirl ceremony predates, all right, that of how the Stuarts passed it on to the colonies. Now the colonies pass it on to what we now call the states. All right. The twerp and trick ceremony dates back from the feudal era, i.e., William the Conqueror, but were used regularly in the early colonial America. Why? Because they still practiced feudal law. Allowing the English, i.e., Scottish, not English, Scottish. Well, we might as well say English because we know the first English king didn't come until William the Conqueror. So every king that conquered England, which was under the authority of the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, now to turn themselves as English. That's why we don't identify with the term English. We are Anglo-Saxon Berbers prior to 1707 by virtue of the monarch's claims to take sovereign possession over unclaimed land. This is called abandoned property or bona vacatia. New Jersey Vice Statute 4630B1. All right? New Jersey Vice Statute 4630B1. There was only one way that the conveyance could not be done, which resulted from inquisition post-mortem by way of delaying the lottery of season. That was by way of what we call no heir. Okay, under the feudal system, all land belonged to the monarch and was therefore either held by him directly by royal domains or on behalf directly or indirectly. Those who held land directly on the king's behalf were known as tenant in chief. When the tenant in chief died without an heir, his land is escheated to fell into the hands of the king. If there was an heir, the king kept the land until lottery of season took place, and the heir paid a sum of money or relief to take lawful possession or assume possession of the said lands in question. Okay? The only way that can be done is based upon the two processes that we were said. All right? We know that William Penn made his based upon a customary practice going back to Ashleton, and we know he was our complexion. Okay? That's why it was revoked. Okay? He didn't have the right under lottery of law. He had a right of lottery of deed until somebody challenged him on that possession of land that he had based upon that deed as a result of their being a cloud on the title, i.e., what they call a cloud on the title, or what we call um, uh, cloudy title, gap in the chain of title, or what we call what's the other word? Cloudy title, title defect. All right, it's called a title defect. We must understand that. All right. So the lottery of seeds is done by two-way lottery of law and lottery of deed. We did it by lottery of law, based upon how our ancestors told us to do that. All right. The only way that could be done was for a king to incorporate under the crown. Okay, which the governors and every other authoritative figure are aware of. Okay, because those were the ones who were instituted under what we call crown colonies. Okay, crown colonies. In a monarchy, a regent ruling or governing is a person appointed to govern a state temporarily for the time being because the actual monarch is a minor, absent, incapacitated, unable to discharge their power or duties, or the throne is vacant, and that means there is a interregnum, and that started with the English Civil War, which limited English, limited the rights of the king of English kings. Okay, going all the way back to Alfred the Great, and it stopped with Edward the Third. Okay, Edward the Third. Let's see. What else do I want to show you, brothers and sisters? I think that's it. All right, so that's it. As we can see, that from the government that was established by our ancestors from Whitton all the way back to New Jersey, Provincial Council was under the authority of the Crown, and as a result of there, somebody not representing the Crown, i.e., by way of the monarchy or king, it resulted in an interregnum, and that only resulted from the English Civil War, which was started by Charles I and his descendants, i.e., King James I and King James II and King James III and King James IV and King James V. Okay, and they only got their authority as a result of it being transferred to them by who? Henry Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, and Henry VII, who got his authority by what we call right of conquest, which is nothing more than the prescription of sovereignty. Somebody claimed to be the sovereign, in which they, in fact, are not. Okay? They are, in fact, are not. So I'm going to close out on my letter that I went to the courts today to file on the docket. Let me see, did they upload it yet? Oh, yep, they uploaded it. Yeah, they uploaded it. If everybody like what they heard today in this lesson, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. Once again, if you like what you heard today, please give me a thumbs up in the chat. Like, share, subscribe. Any donations, send them to the temple by way of the method provided or to $ Clifford Jefferson L. Okay, your king. This was filed on the docket today. So in lieu of what was discussed today, and as was my last lecture, and not excluding any other lesson that I did, this was a correspondence to the keeper of the King's Conscience. This will be the Lord Chancellor or Vice Chancellor of the King's Conscience here in New Jersey Superior Court, which is responsible for the King's Bench and lieu of what we call what was it, Bellin versus, was it Bellin versus Harris? Yeah, Bellin versus Harris. It states His Majesty. His Majesty King Clifford Jefferson submitted this letter to the presiding judge in this matter. The defendants have no right of suppression of Crown land, now known as the state of New Jersey, pursuant to the New Jersey Constitution of 1776. Article 1 is specific. Article 1 states that the government of this province should be vested in a governor, legislative council, and general assembly as provided for a crown colony. Okay? A governor is no more than a regent, which is temporary. 10. The captain and all other inferior officers of the militia to be chosen by the companies in respective counties, but filled in general officers by the council and general assembly. So the people are not supposed to be electing anybody. 11. The council and assembly shall have power to make the great sale of this colony, which shall be kept by who? The regent, the governor, minister, viceroy, temporarily, or in the absence by that vice president, i.e., also term president of the council, to be used by them as an occasion that may require. And it should be called the Great Sale of the Colony of New Jersey. All right? Not the state of New Jersey, the colony. 12. That the judges of the Supreme Court should continue in office for 7 years. The judges of the inferior courts of common pleas and the several counties justices of the peace, clerks of the Supreme Court, clerks of the inferior courts of the common pleas, court of sessions, as well as the attorney general and the provincial secretary should continue office for 5 years, and the provincial treasurer should continue office for 1 year, and that they shall be severely appointed by the council and assembly in manner aforesaid, not by the people, and commissioned by the governor, regent, viceroy, minister, or in his absence by the vice president, synonymous of the council, provided always that the said officers severely shall be capable of being reappointed at the end of the term severally before limited, and that any of the said officers shall be liable to be dismissed when a judge guilty of misbehavior by the council of impeachment of assembly, which only results in malfeasance of office, misfeasance of office, and non-feasance of office. Okay? And this will only happen if you're not acting based upon how you were actually instructed to act based upon Viscount Lowell Cornbury, which he stated. The governor also termed viceroy, administrator, or regent, and his acting officers have cast a die in this event, which means that have set a course from which there is no return, being regents of the crown of England. In a monarchy, a regent from the Latin region's ruling governor is a person appointed to govern a state pro tempore, i.e., for the time being, because the actual monarch is a minor, absent, incapacitated, or unable to discharge their power or duties. On the throne, because it is vacant, pardon, so because it is vacant, or the throne, uh, able to discharge his duty, or the throne is vacant and a new monarch has not yet been determined as established in Article 23 of the 1776 New Jersey Constitution. If you read it, New Jersey Constitution clearly says that there was supposed to be a reconciliation with the crown. Once you really conciliate with the crown, that means that the throne has now been occupied. It's no longer vacant. There's no interregnum, and now the king can discharge his duties. Okay, all right. And when that's the case, that means that the suppression or prescription or alienation that the state of New Jersey has done by their constitution becomes what? Everybody say it, null and void. In closing, suppression is one of the ways which rights may be lost, along with renunciation or alienation. This has not been done by the English heirs and successors. It might have been done by everybody else, but not us. Through wrongdoing or forfeiture, and through prescription or expiration of the rights or their expropriation by competing claimants. One form of prescription is suppression, where rights are alleged to have faded away over time and replaced by another's claim. Okay? By another's claim. So if somebody has taken your identity, then you need to challenge that, because that idea is essentially employed by an accurately analyzed and virtually all theories of the territorial right. This court, as well as you or any other platform, must distinguish from the Defendants Act of Supersession, which in any state of the Union, in any country, etc., you must make this analyzation. And then it must be examined and criticized by all of the familiar arguments in non-favor of suppression or supersession or superseding. The argument considered concerning fading basis, shaky counterfactual, or change in circumstances and the involving demand of justice. Okay? Of justice. So with that, let me put forth, are there any questions? Are there any questions on behalf of those who are viewing this platform today? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Peace, peace. Are there any questions? So with that, if there's no more questions, and if there's no more questions, then that means that the lesson has been interpreted properly by those who are viewing it. Once again, I always say, It's better for you to not know this or to not act like you know this and not follow it, for you will be held accountable. And with that, I'm going to greet you as I have always greeted you, and in the spirit of my ancestors, which is always in what? Peace and love. Talk to you later.